everyone, I'm Amanda, and today I'll be talking about protein and peptide structures role in the membrane. Now, every living thing is made up of a cell. The cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Every cell is made up of a cell membrane, but we would not be talking about the entire cell membrane today. We'll just be focusing on the proteins which are part of the cell membrane. Now, I'd like to think about this is an illustration of what this a section of the cell membrane looks like. I'd like to think about the cell membrane as a sandwich. You have both breads representing the lipid layer of the cell membrane, but in the lipid layer of the cell membrane, we also have proteins which we will be talking about today. There are various types of proteins in the cell membrane. This is known as the integral protein. This is the peripheral protein, and this is the lipid anchored protein. They are basically peripheral proteins, just like this, but they are lipid anchored. So broadly, we have the integral protein and the peripheral proteins. Talking about the integral proteins, they are the proteins that run through the entire thickness of the cell membrane. They are embedded in the cell membrane, unlike the peripheral proteins, which you can find peripherally, that they have the capability of excluding themselves from the cell membrane. They can dissociate from the cell membrane, as opposed to the integral protein, which is embedded structurally in the cell membrane. Now we'll be talking about the various types of integral proteins. We have the cell adhesion proteins, the cell junction proteins, some carrier transport proteins, channel proteins, some hormone receptors, antigen, some enzymes. Also, for the peripheral proteins, we have proteins of the cytoskeleton, also some carrier proteins, and some enzymes also. Now, bringing us to our topic, which says the structures role, the protein and peptide structures role. What is their role now in the cell membrane? When we talk about protein, we also include peptides, because peptides make up protein, so we talk about it holistically. What are the functions, what are the roles these proteins play in the cell membrane? They serve as adhesion proteins. Obviously, we know for complex living things like us, we are made up of different cells. How on earth do these cells adhere to each other? How do they make up tissues? That's each cell joining together to make up tissues. How does that happen? It is through the integral proteins, the cell adhesion proteins specifically. That's how they help to adhere different cells together, which will eventually build up to make up tissues. Also, they serve as junction proteins. Just like the word junction implies, junction protein from one protein to the other. When you have two cells adhering to each other, and there's need for transport of probably neurotransmitters or whatever chemicals or metabolites through the cells, you need a junction for them to pass through, and these proteins serve as junctions between cells. Also, we have carrier or transport proteins. They help to transport metabolites like water soluble metabolites like glucose. They help to transport electrolytes. These are also roles of the proteins. Also, we talk about pumps. Proteins serves as pumps. Now, pumps are involved in active or passive transport. The ATP pump and other pumps. They are made up of proteins. Also, we have channel proteins. They help to channel cells to each other. That's also a work of the proteins. Also, some hormone receptors are made up of proteins. Now, we look at receptors as the gate men for the cells. You have hormones sent to distant sites to elicit their actions. They can't just go into the cells. They need to go through the gate man through the gate men, and these proteins, these receptors act as the gate men of the cells. They help to recognize the hormones, receive them, and then open up for their entry into the cells. This is another role of the protein, serving as some hormone receptors. Also, they also serve as antigens. You know, antigens stimulate antibody reactions. It's an immunological reaction in the body. You need the presence of antigens on cells to simulate an antibody reaction in the system. And these proteins serve as antigens to stimulate antibody reactions. Also, some enzymes as we know it, speed up metabolic reactions in the body. Some enzymes are actually proteins. So proteins make up enzymes. Proteins speed up metabolic reactions in the body. Also, integral proteins, they help to maintain the integrity of the cell. They keep the cell membrane in shape, keep it structurally, and maintain this structure. So they keep the integrity of the cell. That's another function of the integral protein. So I hope I was able to convey the information and you understood perfectly what I just explained. Thank you and have a nice day.